Okay, guys, we're going to finish up the story today. We're going to continue reading just the way we did and stopping after every paragraph.
I to fear. I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim.
Okay, guys, so he invites the cops in. Says I bade them to search, which, begged him. Told him the man was out of the country, and the reason why you heard the scream, it was me in my sleep. He showed them everything. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. Then he has so much in confidence that he's not going to get caught at this point. He brings chairs into the room and he tells them to sit here. If you're tired, rest. And he takes a chair and he has the audacity, which means like the nerve, because he has this perfect triumph, this perfect victory. He places his chair on the very spot which underneath is the corpse of the victim he had just murdered.
The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ring in my ears, but still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears.
Okay, so, the officers were satisfied. My manner, which means he's saying like the way I acted, had convinced them, and he was at ease. They sat while I answered cheerily. They chatted. So, they're just talking and, chit-chatting. And then all of a sudden he finds himself getting pale. He wants him gone. His head's aching. And he hears this, supposed ringing in his ear. And it became more distinct. And then he realized it's not his head, that he is hurting. And it's not, the ringing in his ears is something else. So let's see. And in this paragraph, I want you to pay attention, Edgar Allan Poe uses dashes and big capital letters for a reason. So I want you to pay attention.
No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath. And yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, God, what could I do? I foamed. I raved, I swore, I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, and still the men chattered pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark, louder. Villains! I shrieked. Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks here. Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart!
All right, so I want to go back and talk to you about this paragraph. So, he realizes this noise he's hearing isn't between his head or his ears. And, it says he started talking more fluidly with a heightened voice, almost trying to drown out the sounds. And then notice how it says it was lull, dull, quick sound, much sound like a watch makes when enveloped in cotton, which we know it's the beating of a heart that he's hearing. And he capitalizes this because, he wants you to understand that this noise has become so prevalent that he can't tune it out. He gasps for breath, and he just knows when he says right here, and yet the officers had not heard it. He talked quickly, but the noise steadily increased. He was, it's almost like his guilt is getting to him at this point, or, the worry of being caught. We don't quite know yet, and he's trying to understand why they don't hear it. He hears it. Remember, he's not crazy. So he's like, why are they not hearing it? I can hear it. I'm not crazy. Why won't they just leave? And then this is where he starts to really unwind. He paces the floor, heavy strides. The noise steadily increases because he's trying to drown out that noise. He started foaming and raving and swearing, which basically means, he's just acting like a crazy person. He swings the chair against the wall, and the brakes and the noise, it's louder and louder. He talks about he is moving around, and he just right here, oh God, no, they heard. They suspected, they knew, and they were making a mockery of my horror. So now at this point, he's thinking, oh my God, how do they not hear? Now they're just making fun of me because they think I'm crazy, and I'm not crazy. And this made him really explode because, when it says I couldn't bear those hypocritical smiles any longer, I felt I must scream or die. He's like, he's very convinced that he's not crazy. And, for somebody him to think somebody thinks he's crazy, it's going to drive him insane. And then you have this beating that's keeping going, and it won't stop, and it gets louder and louder and louder and louder. And finally he can't take it anymore. And he winds up, when it says dissemble no more, and dissemble means to pretend like you don't know something, or you know the truth, but you're pretending like you don't. He's like, dissemble no more. I admit this deed, tear up the planks. Here's the beating of my heart. And I guess like a lot of the questions people have about this story is, did he confess because he felt guilty? Or did he confess because he was guilty? He was worried he was going to get caught, and he felt guilty, and he felt like they were making him, or they were acting like he was crazy. So finish your questions, and we'll do more research on this story again later on this week.